Hey there, my name is Brandon. I'm a registered nurse, soon to be a nurse practitioner, and I also deal with the autism spectrum disorder. So some people call it Asperger's, some say high functioning autism. I just want to make that differentiation because there are various areas within the spectrum of autism that people with autism fall into. Some are way more severe than mine, and I'm very grateful that I am able to function at the level that I do. My goal in putting out this first YouTube video is to be able to help other people that might be in a similar situation and to encourage them. You know, having a disorder such as autism can be intimidating, and it may feel like a very big hurdle to overcome in order to pursue one's goals in life. And I feel very honored and very privileged to be able to have made it to this point and to have been able to navigate the adult world. But it hasn't been without its challenges. And so I'm very grateful to those that have been supportive of me. And I'm also very much appreciative of those that have posted their videos on YouTube that preceded me, because those people helped me on my own path. So I'm gonna post links down below to two of the YouTubers that had posted about their stories of autism. That way y'all can look at those and maybe those will be helpful to you. So in this video, my goal is to talk about 10 traits that I deal with being on the spectrum. These are not a top 10, they're not in any particular order. It's just 10 of the traits that I have to deal with. There are many others and I could go on and on, but I want to keep the video brief. So also, if you wait to the end of the video, I'll tell you 5 things that I do to be able to cope. So the first, and this is probably the most difficult symptom for me, and I have dealt with this as far back as I can remember. When I was a little kid, I remember I would do this thing like this, or rocking a little bit, but not like all the time. And it was usually when I was either really excited or a little overstimulated. And it got to the point where I started having a lot of back pain as I got older. I remember when I was about 22, 23, I started having a whole lot of back pain. And so I started seeing physicians for it, and that started the long road of many tests, CAT scans, MRIs, x-rays, blood tests, all this kind of thing. And in all those tests, we did find out that I did have some issues with my back. I found out that I had a hemangioma on my spinal cord. So I'm grateful that I came across that. However, those things did not promote being able to come up with a way to deal with what I later found out was my stimming. I noticed when I was under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, like things like driving the car, or when people would talk in a certain pitch of voice, or if I had to deal with certain confrontational people, if I was coming down to a deadline on something, I noticed I would have these tics and stimming behaviors. And it would get so bad that I would have pain all over my body, and the only thing that could relieve it was being able to lay down, like with no clothes, just laying in the bed in the cold sheets with the AC on and a blanket over me, because I was in so much like just pain everywhere. So that is probably the worst symptom that I have to deal with, is that, and I do hold back a lot. I do try to mask a lot because of, especially in my profession, I don't have the luxury of being able to explain to everyone that I am on the spectrum, and not everyone's going to understand. You know, in a nursing field, I just do the best I can, and then I have to take care of myself later and kind of calm myself down. Second thing that I have to deal with, I'm very sensitive to textures. So textures of food, textures of clothing, and it's not necessarily all bad, because if I find a texture I like, I get very fixated on it. So I love soft things like silk and velvet, and soft pillows. I know on my couch I've got all these, like the way I decorated my couch, I've got like a ton of different pillows from different stores, because I just love the way they feel. They feel like animals, like you're petting your cat or your dog. So It can be very soothing, but it can also be very difficult for me, being so sensitive to textures. So, for example, clothing, I have a very difficult time like wearing a tie or wearing a coat. Jackets, seat belts coming across me, those are all very difficult things. Actually, the seat belt was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in me getting diagnosed. So when I would drive a car, I would be driving like this, and I would put the seatbelt on to stay legal, but I would pull the seatbelt away from my body, so it's clicked in, and technically I'm legal, but I'm holding it away from my body because I couldn't deal with it touching me, and I would drive like this. So that was really frustrating for me. You can imagine what it must be like trying to drive like that. And if you got people in the car with you, it's kind of embarrassing. So we were thinking it was maybe post-traumatic stress disorder, just a whole lot of other things. And then we found out later it was just, I'm just real sensitive to touching and textures and things of that nature. I like to dress up. I like to look nice, but say like going to a business meeting, being dressed up, it would literally drive me nuts. Like my stimming would get worse, and the first thing I wanted to do as soon as I got out of that meeting was take my clothes off and go lay on the floor, lay in bed in some cold sheets to kind of calm my skin down. It's like I could feel like every follicle of hair that my shirt was touching on. It's just like I'm super, super sensitive. So the funny thing is, like, if I go shopping and there's a sale, like say I love Banana Republic, and if they've got a sale on some t-shirts, I'll spend my budget all on that one kind of t-shirt. I'll try to get different colors, but it'll be like I have like 7 of the same kind of t-shirt, which I find is very typical for a lot of people on the spectrum. A third thing is I'm very sensitive to sound, so certain people's voices get on my nerves, and I have a problem with, if you've heard of misophonia. Misophonia is, it's like an intense feeling that you get from people making noises. So like people eating with their mouth open, smacking, it's like it makes me, I start feeling my blood boiling, and I'll be like trying to talk myself down, like, oh, they're a good person, they're my friend, whatever, and I lose my appetite. So because I can't even eat because all I can hear is a sound. Or going to a movie theater and hearing people eat popcorn and nachos around you, I just hate movie theaters because of that. I do go to them maybe once or twice a year, but I try to go when there's not too many people there. Of course, with COVID, that's not happening. Smells, I'm very sensitive to smells. So, for example, I hate the smell of mushrooms, and I know mushrooms are so good for you, and I try to force feed them to myself, but like I'll have friends say, well, I'll just get mushrooms on my side of the pizza, and we'll get a pizza to go. And if there's mushrooms on half the pizza and not on the other half that I'm going to eat, and you open the box, it's like it ruins the whole pizza. Like I can smell it, just stinks so bad. So I can't stand it. If mushrooms are like blended up into like soup or something and cooked for a long time, I don't smell the smell, and I can deal with that. Also, social interaction is very difficult for me. People say, oh, you don't look like you have autism, and it's kind of frustrating because I know they probably mean well, but basically it's like telling me there's nothing wrong with me and there's not a reason for all your other behaviors that might get on people's nerves. So it's kind of like it invalidates my being on the spectrum. And it's not that, it's just I have to work really hard to look neurotypical, to look normal. So it takes a lot out of me, and then when I'm done engaging with people, all I want to do is go take a nap because I'm so tired. So social interaction is very difficult. Eye contact is very uncomfortable for me. I do it because I know I'm supposed to do it, but like it's extremely calculated. Like I'll be looking at them and I'm thinking, okay, I must look at you. Okay, okay, that's too much. Look at that. Oh wow, look at that. Okay, look back at the person. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, look at that. So, yeah, eye contact is extremely difficult. I hate small talk. Small talk is very, very hard for me. So, like, that's one thing I love about when I go travel the world. There's some countries where small talk, like in Sweden, I love visiting Sweden, and people think I'm crazy over here because I'll be like, Oh yeah, Sweden's great. Yeah, it was a wonderful trip. Oh, okay. What'd you like about it? Yeah, nobody talks to anybody like on the subway or in the elevator. You know, if you do that, you're looked at as kind of odd. And over here in Texas, people are just so friendly. And a lot of people like that, but I don't because it's very difficult for me and very cognitively fatiguing. Um, Metaphorical speech, I struggle with that sometimes. It's not one of my bigger symptoms, but I do have issues. Like, for example, if I've heard the metaphor a lot and it's been explained to me, I understand it. But I sometimes just don't get it. My coworkers, they laugh about it a lot. You know, I'm kind of gullible and I'll take things very literal. Um, there's some expressions, though, that are just so vague that even if someone explains it to me, I may get it for a few seconds, but I can't remember it. Like, for example, there's an expression, never throw stones in glass houses, something like that. I still cannot wrap my head around that. It doesn't make any sense. So I have a hard time with sarcasm, and I have a hard time with when people say nothing. Like, I can't tell if they're angry at me or they're just thinking, or, you know, it's really hard for me. I have a lot of special interest. My whole life I've been like that. I would have very specialized interest in things that most people aren't interested in. Especially as a kid, I remember I would uh, you know, try to learn all these languages, like how to write and count from 1 to 10 in like Bengali or Chinese, Japanese. I would stay up late at night reading encyclopedias as a kid in elementary school, and so I was really ahead of the class when it came to science matters. Like the textbooks weren't even at that point, but and it caused issues for me in school. I could talk about that on another video. But yeah, very specialized interest. As I got older, I got fixated on Star Trek and trying to learn about every alien species in there. And then there was Star Wars, you know, all sorts of space things. I still have a lot of specialized interests. I remember as a young kid, I was very into plants and learning all their Latin names. I mean, what 10-year-old goes around memorizing Latin names of all the plants? So, yeah, very specialized interest. Echolalia. Um, some people just think I'm being goofy that see me do this, but like there are certain words that are very, it's like therapeutic for me to say. So, like, one of them is diabetes. But I have to say it a certain way. I have to say it like with a twang to it, like a southern twang is diabetes. And I noticed when I was in my master's degree that I just finished up for nurse practitioner, on days I was extremely stressed, or if I got overstimulated with, like when I moved into a house, I would just go around diabetes, diabetes, diabetes. It's something about it is like therapeutic. And my mom, she used to be like, because she got diagnosed with diabetes a couple years ago. She goes, "It's all your fault because you kept saying diabetes all the time." So there's that. Making certain sound effects. We had a finch that made a certain chirping sound, and so I would go around doing that sound over and over. So yeah. So echolalia. Hyperfocus is another thing I deal with. That's number 9. So like with hyperfocus, I can take something like, say, like this shell, and I just get like all into it, you know. And I've had friends. I remember I was in the car one day with some friends, and I was just like so enamored with the pine trees. They were like, you know, are you on something? So I get real fixated on things. I get startled very easy. I worked night shift for years, and so I would go around to the rooms at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would have to empty out the pee, you know, the urine out of the catheter bag from the ICU patients, and then count the urine. And so I'm sitting there focusing really hard. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning, so I've already worked like 10 hours straight, right? So I'm pouring the urine out into the um, the measuring device and into the urinal, and someone came up behind me, and the lights were off in the room because I'm trying not to like wake up the patient, just get the urine out. Someone came up behind me and they said, "Hey, Brandon," and it startled me, and I like spilt the pee all over the floor. That was not the only time I did that. So Yeah, so I get real like, or I'll be working on the computer, you know, typing something up, and then my coworker comes in, and I'm just like, oh, you know, just startled. So, real hyper focused. Monotone speech. So I might sound monotone in this video, and I apologize for that. Um, it's really hard for me to not be monotone. When I get real comfortable with someone, all of a sudden I'll just start talking monotone, you know, just normal like this. My brother, he's always joking about it because, like, I'll be like really excited about something. Like, say we go out to eat a nice meal or something, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this. My brother's impression of me is, oh my goodness, this food is really good. I'm really enjoying it. Wow, this chocolate ice cream is just amazing. So yeah, so there's that. Now, ways of coping. I mentioned that I would talk about that. So 5 things I do to cope. One is learn my triggers and learn when to avoid when possible. So I know certain sounds get on my nerves, and if I know I can avoid those, I do. I wear earphones a lot to listen to music when I'm around people that make noises. I just do as much as I can to avoid those kinds of triggers. Um, you know, hey, I don't like the smell of mushrooms on pizza, so I don't get mushrooms on my pizza. Uh, if possible, number 2, I try to let people know I have autism. I don't go around announcing it, and I'm very calculated with how I do that because I know different people are going to react to it, and there can be different consequences um, of telling them that. So if possible, I try to let them know, and it really does help. I try to take as many breaks as possible. And so, like, I love naps. After work, a lot of times I'll take a 30-minute nap, 10-minute nap, 15-minute nap. Sometimes it's just laying down, you know, just take off my uncomfortable clothes and just lay down in bed just for a bit and just relax, you know, and then I'm good to go for another few hours. I have to take breaks in my work. I can't just sit there and stay hyper focused for like 8 hours on the same thing. Other things is I try to eat as healthy as I can. There are exceptions to that, but yeah, I mean, I notice my symptoms are a lot better. My tics are a lot better when I'm drinking plenty of water and I'm trying to cut back on my carbs. If I eat a lot of carbohydrates, I notice that I do have a lot worse symptoms of all the symptoms I mentioned earlier. And then I have hobbies. So that's number 5 for me. Um, you know, I recently bought a drum kit, an electronic drum kit, so I'm trying to teach myself that. Um, I garden. I make terrariums. You know, I solder and the glass together and make little glass terrariums and put plants in them, things like that. So yeah, and now maybe YouTube will be a new hobby for me too. So that's 10 things I have to deal with autism and 5 ways I cope. So I hope this video was helpful to you. And if y'all have questions, feel free to post below. I would be more than happy to answer. And let me know if there's any things that y'all would like to learn more about. Take care.